Lumick.
Okay, I want to welcome everybody to March Education Night. It's March the 23rd, 2023, and I'm looking at the wrong notes here. Oops. We got a couple of guests here tonight. Looks like Andrea is a guest. And I think she's the only one that's arrived at this point. I don't know if we had 4 people check in about it, ask about it. Hi, Andrea. Can you unmute yourself and just say hello?
Hey, how's it going?
Great. Where are you? Where are you coming in from?
Elvira here.
There's Elvira over there. So where are you? Where do you live?
Tampa, Seminole Heights.
Okay. What kind of photography do you do?
Mainly real estate and like new construction, interior design, architecture, stuff like that.
Well,
yeah, I've been doing that for like 8 years now.
Okay. Well, Jim, one of our professionals here, that's what he does. He's a professional. He does.
Yeah, I know Jim. That's actually how I kind of came about to be here. So
okay, awesome. I think she's the only one that's here right now. We had 3 other people check in with us, so we'll see if they show up eventually. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. First thing I want to do is play the photo camp slideshow that I couldn't manage last week, so I'm going to go ahead and try to get it and see if I can get the sound to work this time. I think I figured out how to do this, so we'll keep our fingers crossed. And I did pull it up. Images. Give me 1 second here while I pull it up. Can you see it? Like a gray screen?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's it. I will go ahead and post this on the website later today. So if you want to take a look at it and slow it down and stop it and look at it a little closer, then you're welcome to do that online. I have a few other announcements. Okay. The board members that are here tonight, I need to meet with you guys briefly at the end of the meeting. So stick around. Don't cut out on me. And this meeting shouldn't take that long tonight. I don't think it's going to take us more than a couple hours at the most. So if you guys wouldn't mind just staying for a few minutes afterwards, so we can just discuss that issue that I emailed you about earlier this week.
Sure.
Assignments. April, the assignment is for long exposure landscapes, and that's for 1 second or more. So obviously you're probably going to need either a very dark day or a night time or a neutral density filter. So keep that in mind. So it needs to be at least 1 second. And please do not strip out the metadata so we can see that that's the case. May is bird portrait. So you heard some of you heard us Diana talking about birds on a stick. This is when birds on a stick are appropriate. So we want a bird portrait. So, it's best to get them so that there's some gesture, something that makes them interesting. So keep that in mind as well. June is going to be environmental portrait, which is the whole reason we have the education night tonight on environmental portrait. So you've got a couple of months to, make these shots happen. July is going to be telephoto or intimate landscapes. And so that's the next 4 months. Education nights, obviously tonight is environmental portrait. April, we're going to have a very special presentation. It's so special that we had to move it. It will not be on Thursday night next month. And all this will be on the website. So all the details will be coming out shortly. I just wanted to get past the announcements for tonight. But we're going to have Rick Salmon. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. We've talked about him briefly before, but he is the godfather of photography. He's been shooting for like a million years. He is got over 40 books on photography out there. And he's going to, and his main thing is I kind of learned my how I shoot from him in terms of what I shoot. He's specifically not specific, so he's a generalist in terms of photography, but he does a lot of traveling, and so he's going to be talking to us about travel photography. It is going to be on Sunday, April the 30th at 3 p.m. So again, I will send all this out. We don't normally make a change like this, but to accommodate him, I was willing to, the board decided to make that change. So we will not have a fourth Thursday education night in April. We will have it on the following Sunday, a couple of days later. So again, all that announcements will go out shortly on that stuff.
Len, let me interject 1 second. Yeah. This is a night when you invite a friend.
Yeah.
To participate in this that education.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Rick is, like I said, is very well known. He's got, I don't know, 20 classes with Kelby Media. And like I said, he's written a lot of books and he's out there. He was a Canon Explorer of Light, but he recently switched to Sony, which I'm sure Robert's going, woo, woo. Yay. Yeah, he recently switched to Sony, although right now he's shooting almost exclusively with his iPhone. So yeah, he's been putting a lot of stuff. He just got back from Morocco a couple of days ago. Everything he shot there was on iPhone. So anyway, in May, our education night is going to be done by Joshua Crypt, who is a young photographer who he also does a lot of traveling, but he's going to talk to us about telephoto landscapes, which is our July assignment. So he's coming in to talk about something that's coming up, in a couple of months as well. So June is a to be determined. We're trying to work on maybe an outing for June instead of an education night, which we did last year. Like we went to the James Western Museum, which was awesome. So we might be doing something like that. We're trying to figure out what to do that month, and I'm working on a couple of possibilities. So we'll let you know about June coming up. July, Angie McMonigal, who is one of the top architectural photographers in the world, will be talking to us about architectural abstracts, which she also does. She's got her abstracts are in museums all over the place. So, and she's really nice. I was her host at the Out of Chicago online conference a couple months ago, and she was really a nice person. So she has agreed to give us spend some time with us as well. So that will be in July. Outings, our outing for October, not quite that far ahead yet, Lynn. In April the 1st is our one-day Tampa Bay Camera Club. We talked about this a little bit. It's 24 hours from midnight to midnight. of April the 1st, where no matter where you are, you need to go out and shoot and get some pictures of where you are, whether it's where you live or where you're visiting, where you're, where you're traveling to, doing work, whatever you are that day. We want you to go out and take some pictures so that we're all doing it, not just the folks in Tampa, that everybody is participating. And we want you to, send at least 5 of those images afterwards, and I'll give you all the details are online, by the way, on our website. And you have a few days to get together at least 5 images, send them to me, and we'll create another slideshow. But I need to know where each one of these places is. So put your, the name of your city, or, if you're in a national park, put the name of the national park, something so I can identify it in the name of on the file name. And that way we can identify where each place is in the slideshow. It's going to take me some time to put this together because of that, but I don't care. This is going to be a fun thing to do for us. And we might even consider doing something more, maybe a blurb book. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, that is on April the 1st. For those in Tampa, the Tampa area, we're going to be meeting at 4:30 at Julian B. Lane Park across the river from downtown Tampa. And as we mentioned last time, do not bring your tripod. Do not bring a rolling bag. Be as lightweight, as unprofessional looking as you possibly can, because we're trying not to attract attention by the permit police that suddenly have become more active lately. So hopefully we won't have to worry about this. We're putting stuff in place that we need in order to get permits in the future. So we won't have to worry about it, but we didn't have enough time this time. So don't bring a tripod. We'll be done before it gets dark. So the tripods are not that critical. And so, just bring one camera, one lens, if you want a wide to long zoom, if you got something like that, which I call a walking around lens, where you can shoot just about anything with it. That's perfect. And just we're going out there to enjoy ourselves and spend a little time just kind of taking pictures of Tampa Bay. But don't forget, you could go shoot during the day or that evening after we're done, or whatever, wherever you want to shoot in. Again, this is showing where you are at that point in time, in that one day, that 24 hours. So any questions on any of that? Okay, we're good. Again, all the details are in on the website.
Just a quick question on the portrait, the landscape. What is it called?
Environmental.
Yeah, the environmental. Thank you. In my mind, when I started, looking into that, it's like if you went down to Ybor City and shot some of the people working there.
Diana, that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. That's the whole purpose of tonight. So we'll get into all of that shortly. Jim, do you have any comments to add to all this? Or you said you had an announcement.
Yeah, I mentioned the workshop I'll be doing in April last month, and want to let people know I've got some very interesting itinerary worked out for that, and still working on some things if you're interested. And I made a change to what the dates are going to be to make it a little easier and to accommodate some other people that were already interested. We're going to do the 13th, and we're going to end in time for people to attend the meeting that night of the Tampa Bay Camera Club. 15th, which is a Saturday, and then Sunday will be people can be home, be with families, do what they want, edit, catch up on things. And the final day will be Monday instead of Sunday, and we'll do stuff on Monday. I have lined up and solidified a food shoot restaurant. I have lined up a couple of cosplay actors that have some really cool costumes that we're going to do some stuff with, some creative lighting and some different portraits with some people with some really cool costumes and stuff. And I'm in the process of working out a hot air balloon shoot for one day and a few other things. So anybody interested in that, just send me a message in the chat tonight, and I'll give you any more information that you want.
Is your class full?
What?
Is the class full?
You have openings.
No, I have a couple people that are signing up, but I still have a few more slots. It's going to be small. It's not going to be a big group because we're going to be doing some stuff in my studio and out, and it's going to be limited to the number of participants. So, but there is still I can take about 3-4 more people right now.
All right, so send him a chat if you specifically to
Are
him,
you-
just pick him.
Are you going to be doing this again? Please, please, please.
Yeah, if there's enough interest to do it again, I could do it again. I know you've got to have a knee surgery,
Yeah.
as I recall, but if maybe in another month or so after that, if there's still more people that want to do it, I could possibly do it. I'd have to some more things again, but right now I do have some interesting shoots lined up for people, and you're going to be doing things. Doing a lot of things that you've maybe never done or never tried before, and it's all going to be assignment based, and you're going to learn and hands-on with some new techniques with all of this. Even with the cosplay actors, you're going to do some lighting techniques you've probably never done or never thought of before.
Cool.
Oh, thanks, Jim.
All right,
Mm-hmm.
Robert, you got anything to add? You're muted.
No, I just want to reemphasize that on our education night where we have guest speakers, we know that it's normally closed off, and we want you to be able to invite a friend. You get to invite at least one friend. Is it one, Lee, or two?
One.
One friend to this event. So I want to invite people
Yeah.
that might be interested in photography.
Yep. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions from anybody? All right, then I'm going to turn it over to Robert and Jim to give our presentation on how to create an environmental portrait.
Yeah, what we actually did last week, Lynn and Robert and I got together and filmed a live environmental portrait session. Robert did the photography. I did the videography. Lynn assisted and acted as host on that, and we got it all together basically just in time to present this, because we got it shot last week, and I've been editing it and making it presentable for tonight. So we're going to present that, and we're also going to have lots of Q&A and whatnot. I think we should do that after the presentation.
All right.
Robert, do you have anything
Want to
to?
go ahead and
to-
I guess do you think there was enough of an explanation in the video about the definition of environmental portrait, or do you
We'll
want to
cover
start
it more. We'll cover it more afterwards. We
Okay.
can go more and answer questions afterwards. I think would be appropriate.
Yeah.
What do you think, Robert?
I think because we are stars and celebrities, we should just let the film roll.
All right. Unless anybody has any questions or anything else they want to cover before I start this, I'm going to get this started. And once
How
we
long-
confirm that it's playing appropriately for everyone, I'm going to go dish out my dinner. It should be done.
Jim, how long is it about?
I don't remember the exact time. It's somewhere between 15 and 20 minutes, closer to 20 minutes, give or
Okay.
take.
Okay. In other words, it didn't take as long. It's not taking as long as it took us to film it.
Yeah, I condensed 2 hours of filming into about a 20-minute video.
Perfect.
Yeah, you guys didn't want to watch the whole 2 hours.
No.
Hey, Lynn, it says my screen sharing has been disabled by the host.
Well,
I don't know, Jim. We could have gotten some bloopers. Not that I'm looking for blackmail stuff or anything.
There's a blooper in it.
Do
There-
you have an
There
outtake
is a
reel?
blooper that is included. Watch for it.
I want to see the outtake reel.
you
Trust
don't.
me, you don't.
You don't.
And unless you wanted to put you to sleep.
I can do that by myself.
I was just going to interject something and lost my train of thought before we start. Hang on. Nope, it's gone. We'll just start.
Have you got the
Oh,
co-host?
yeah. No, I was just going to give a little background information on it. We actually did this at the art college where my studio was located, and we enlisted one of the painters. He and I have been the two longest running artists in there. We both had studios up there for 15 years now, and he used to be my native studio down in Channel Side before we both moved to Ybor City. So we did environmental portraiture of a painter in his studio in the Ybor Art Colony. Lynn introduces him during the video, but he's been there for 15 years. He's very prolific. You'll actually see he has artwork in the hallways, artwork in his studio, and I know from knowing him that he actually has the garage in his home is filled with his art, and he has a storage facility filled with his art, and he actually does sell stuff in New York and LA galleries, and does do some shows around the country. He's well known in certain art circles. But that's so we decided to do a painter in his studio. That was the portraiture subject and his environment. So I'll go ahead.
Also,
and,
we're showing 3 different lightings. We're showing available light, lighting, and then harsh flashlight, just flat with flash, not flash light, but lighting with flash, where the flash is the main subject. I mean, the main light. So that's what we're showing.
yeah, we wanted to show you, that we took this approach of not just going in and making a single shot, but doing multiple shots and using multiple lighting techniques with what's there, because the studio has some great north-facing windows. So we used the windows, and then, as Robert said, we used fill flash to work in some stuff with the windows, and then we actually blocked up the windows and just worked with a flash and some less window light in the studio. But we'll let it roll from here, and make note of any questions for afterwards. All right, I'm digging up the video file right now.
That's crazy. Yep. Come on, you can do it. I know you can do it.
All right. I disconnected some of my drives, so I only have 17 drives connected right
Oh,
now.
geez.
So- I think last time we did this, I had 23 drives connected. I only have 17 drives connected to this machine right now. So give me a minute here.
You don't remember where you
Okay,
where you left
I've
it?
got it.
Okay.
All right, you see a screen that says environmental portrait live shoot.
No, it's just black.
no,
The
black-
black
black-
screen.
All right. Well, it should be black. Yes.
Okay.
Do you see a
Yes.
play button or anything at the bottom?
No,
No.
just the black screen.
All right. Well, it is black until I hit play, so you probably don't see my playing controls. So I'm going to start it now. Holler at me if you don't see anything, in the next 2 or 3 seconds.
You hear it? Okay.
Got it.
Got it.
And see, I'm in this place here and I just walked in, and the first thing I'm gonna have to try to figure out is what are we going to do? And
But first, before you get started, what is an environmental portrait?
environmental portrait is and it's sort of self-explanatory in the sense that we're going to photograph somebody in their environment to tell the story, not just about their facials, but about what they do. And that's what we're going to do here. But before we do any of that, we got to figure out what's going to be interesting to our audience in order to make this work. And a couple things we got to do is we have to consider the light source as well as the story. So what angle am I going to get? What lens do I have in order to get that angle? And how prepared am I beforehand? So we're going to tackle a couple of those things in the process. So a couple of things to consider will be, what ISO should I use? What shutter speed? What aperture? And I think I'm going to go with an aperture of about f5, between 5, 6, and 8, somewhere in there. You ask me why? Because I think I want some detail about what's happening behind my subject as well as my subject, as opposed to this creamy background thing that would be existing in a regular normal
Right.
portrait. So as I look around,
We have lots of good backgrounds here.
yeah, down. Let me tell you something about what you're saying about a lot of backgrounds. Sometimes you can get overwhelmed with the background and lose your subject. So we're going to avoid that. We want to make sure that our subject pops out. And so now, having said that, we're going to approach this, and I think 3 different shots for our audience. And that's going to be a shot using available light. And I think we have a north-facing window. We have available light, and then we're going to do one where we're going to mix the light. We're going to shoot flash and ambient. We're going to mix the two. And then I think for our 3rd shot, and this flash that we use, anybody can use their own flash, just trying to get something off camera. And as far as the 3rd shot of flash, we're going to use the flash by blocking off most of the light that's in here. And although this beautiful artwork is abound, the thing about it is that we have a limited space to work in. So, and one more thing as a little extra, is going to be a little bonus. I'm going to shoot a pano. I'm going to shoot a pano portrait. So we're going to do that. And I think I'm going to do it on our 1st shot with the ambient light.
Sounds like fun.
Fun.
Okay, everybody. Hi, we have a subject here today. He's an artist at the Ybor Artist Colony, and his name is Greg Latch. He has been here at the colony for 15 years, and as you can see, has been quite busy. So have you ever had your portrait made before, Greg?
Portrait made in video?
Yeah.
Only I think maybe one other time.
Okay.
Maybe twice over at the other place too.
Okay.
But it's not very often. No.
Okay. How about portrait via camera, regular camera, still camera?
Yeah, I've had that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna make something special here for you today, and hopefully at the same time teach our members a little bit about environmental portraiture.
Okay. Now, what's the definition of environmental portraiture again? I don't.
The person in their environment, a portrait of a person in their environment. So, in other words, we can tell what it is you do.
Now, what I'm looking at over here is I'm looking at that window coming across, washing right across your face there. And so no, when your legs crossed, that was absolutely perfect. Great. Let me see your right hand on your leg. Just a little bit. Now, yeah, let's pull it back a little bit. And yeah, that perfect. Good. Now I have that. Get this down a little bit lower. Lean forward for me. Just a second. And great. Cross the legs again. Good. That's up. It's great.
Being a model is not easy.
All right, eyeballs here again. Good. Good. Come from a slightly different angle over here. I need to be able to step back slightly without killing myself. And I want to get the entire foot in there. And I know I'm shooting down on you, and that's not what I normally would do. I'd normally be at eye level. Turn your legs that way just a little bit. Good, 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 good. Turn your head that way just a little bit. That's nice. That's very nice. Good. Yeah. Couple shots that way. Let's see. Good. Now, I'm going to come up top and shoot downward. So let me get the ladder. Again, I'm checking my numbers again. I am shooting with a mirrorless camera. So this shot is like wicked. This is so wicked. Yes, yes. Bring your legs that way more. In fact, rotate your body that way more. There you go. Absolutely. Now, why am I rotating the body? Is that I want the face to come to me and the body line to go away from me.
Robert, I noticed you're shooting horizontal. Would you do this in a vertical as well?
Normally, I don't shoot in vertical when I'm shooting environmental. What I tend to do is I shoot horizontal so I have the most range left to right. Whenever I start shooting vertical, I'm cutting out a whole bunch of information, and I'm only going top to bottom. And most of the time, there's not so much up top as there is from left to right when photographing people in their environment. Also, I can repurpose that image via a magazine, double page spread, or if I'm doing any type of layout, it's going to be a horizontal. And I can always from a horizontal crop to a vertical. Now, that was my piece of equipment, but it did not hit anything that belonged to the artist. Otherwise, I'd own that piece. So let me do a couple more from this lower angle.
I see you moving the camera around and around. Why are you doing that?
I'm shooting a pano of my subject so I can get more in the space because the space is limited. So I'm going to take the pano and stitch it together at the end in order to make a super giant image, to make it appear so it's in a larger space. Greg, can I have you turn around on this side over here? Yeah, no. Good, great. Now, in this manner, I am going to, oh, this is working nice. The light is coming in on you. Great, let me get my focus mark. My mark is focus. Yeah, absolute. And eyes to me. Great. Bring your hand on the thigh again. Yeah, that's good.
Should we give him a paintbrush?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, props are always good. All right. It's there, it's good. Rotate your body more toward the left. There you go, great. And somehow I like that brush, not to hang down, but to hang upward. Yeah, up. Yeah, there you go, good. Now, Greg, going to bring your legs back the other way.
The story is here, make sure you work the subject. Don't just take one or two shots and say, I'm done. You need to move around and have them move around.
Absolutely. Now, that's good. Now you're in your element. I see it now. I am finally there. Follow that camera. Now follow me. There it is. Now, Greg, tilt your head that way just a little bit. There. And you feel totally uncomfortable in that area. So tilt it back the other way. And put that brush in that, lift the brush up. And yes. Bring it down, chin down, hand down a little bit. And out to your left. That's good. Brush upward. There you go. Great. All right, now what we're going to do is I'm going to have you sit on the edge of that, as we discussed before. Okay, that's looking pretty good. All right, I think I'm going to get one more angle on this, and it'll be from here. And even though I'm backlighting, I am still going to now override. Let's see my deal. I'm going to compensate by using my exposure compensation because I'm in the manual mode. Normally, and when I say exposure compensation, it just means to add more exposure by increasing either the ISO or on my locked in values, let's say 7.1, 160, would then go to 5.6, and that would allow more light to come in. So that's, and this is, and by the way, this does not seem to be working for me, but I'm shooting it anyway. Why? Because I need more room. Now, because I need more room, guess what I'm going to do?
Panorama time.
I'm going to do a pano. I'm going to shoot hit top, bottom.
Obviously, your subject needs to sit still while you're doing that.
Okay. And I usually at the end of a panel, I put my hand in to let me know that that's the end. All right, I think we have this one taken care of.
That kind of answers one of our questions. I wanted to know how much of the person's environment is necessary in the picture. I guess it just depends on what you want.
I generally overshoot the environment and then crop in to allow for the as much or as little as I need. But I'd rather have a little bit more and then crop down than to have not enough and wish I had to stretch the image. I mean, not wishing I had to stretch, but not wanting to have to stretch the image.
Okay.
So, all right, so what we're doing right now is we're gonna use the ambient light that's in the room, supplement it with the flash at a low power, very low power, in order to capture the entire scene with a little extra contrast, because our subject is in shadow away from our light, which is being backlit. And at this point, we are going to fire a flash and see what happens. And I'll show you part of the process in the final image. Right now I'm focusing on Greg's face, the intensity of what he's doing. Greg, I would like you to lean back in your chair and sort of admire it. Absolutely, absolutely. All right, now Greg, go back and get a little more intensity in your face and continue to do what you're doing. But make sure that you move your body angle a little more back in that direction right there. That's perfect. And why did I have Greg do that? Because I have a light that's coming just off to the side here. And I want to make sure that that light gets a little bit of what he's doing. And I'm going to actually have the flash give a little bit more light so that my background goes a little darker than normal. And I'm going at a different angle here. So Greg, go ahead and lean back in like you were doing. Wonderful.
Robert, I noticed you're now using, you're taking pictures of him while he's actually doing his work. Is
Absolutely.
that different from an environmental portrait, or is it just a different type of environmental portrait?
It's just a different type. I'll have him look at me a couple of times, but mostly what I'm doing is I'm getting a support to the portrait, meaning that showing exactly what's happening, what's being done. Okay, Greg, I want you to lean back just like you did before. Admire. Okay, now, Greg, cross your legs and look at me if you can. Yeah, that's great. Move forward, come forward toward a little closer to me. I'm going to change the ISO right now in order to increase more ambient light in here. And I'm going to see how that looks. Right now, I have the background going a little dark. So I'm going to photograph it going a little lighter. So I'm going to switch my ISO up so that it is, right now it's at 1600. I'm going to double that by one stop to 3200 so that I'll get more ambient. Now, from that there, Greg, stay right where you are, but take a look at me from there. This time, lean forward and put your hands on your, and eyeballs to me. Eyeballs to me. Absolutely. Okay, I'm getting ready to do a pano. So it'll be there, 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 and there. All right, I think we got that one. Okay, so what we're gonna do on this one is I've set up a light, little flashing and up top here, crossing down, hopefully get a little bit of Rembrandt or something there about. And we're gonna use this light to light up the subject as well as getting a little ambient light, a little flash, plus a little bit of the ambient onto our background. This image is gonna be a little stark in a sense, but I think it'll work. Now I'm gonna ask Greg, I'm gonna ask you to do one thing in this particular one. I generally don't have rules, but one thing. You got to get the paint off your face, but always have one foot on the ground at all times. Doesn't matter which one.
Like the old rule for
Yeah, it just gives me a much more confident look. I'm going to start off by coming a little lower. You have something in your hand, and that piece that's in your hand is clutching, so it'll show that you're clutching something. Okay, great. Let's do a first one, and let me do a final test on it just to make sure that this is working. And my flash, did it work?
Yes.
It did work. Okay, great. We're gonna start off. Greg, look directly at me. Good, good. Lean back just a little bit. That's good. And great. And let me have you cross your leg one time. You get nice, nice, nice. And I don't know if I should do the cliche or not of putting a paintbrush in your hand on this one. Len, what do you think? Okay. And let's see if we grab a paintbrush or two. And that'll further give the conclusion. Greg, turn your body this way. Okay, turn. Good, good. Now, that's absolutely perfect. I'm going to go a little tighter in on you. Good. Good. Nice. Good. Very head position. Good. Nice. Loving it. Loving it. Almost there. Almost finished. Turn a little bit more that way. Just a little bit. Eyeballs. Good. And stand. Cross your arms over someone like so. And let that brush go. Oh, nice, 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 nice. Now just make sure the brush goes out that way, the opposite way. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. And eyeballs here. Good. Good. And good. Tilt the head that way just a little bit. Make sure I'm not firing. So let me make sure that's firing. And am I firing now? Good. And good. I think we got it.
Yay. Awesome.
And that's you talking about your own movie. That means the rest of them didn't like it at all. Didn't
That
get
doesn't
anything
mean
out of it.
anything at
That's
all.
good.
That just means we were muted. That's
Oh,
all.
great.
It was-
Yeah.
Enjoyed it a bunch.
Good job.
Wish I
It's
had that
great.
deep gravelly voice to give direction like Robert does.
Who is filming Jim?
He
I had-
was.
I had 3 cameras running in that room,
Oh, okay.
and I was making different camera cuts for, you know, batteries going dead and things happening, and dealing a lot with the fact that Lynn doesn't remember until the last couple words of a sentence to hold the microphone up to her mouth.
Oh, yeah.
Terrible about that.
Actually, there was,
I was like, I'm not a reporter. I forget that I first I forgot to give the mic to Greg, and then I forgot to put it back in my own face. It's like it's a good thing.
that the
It's a good thing I'm not a reporter.
The blooper?
Mhm.
No, Robert's lens cap was the blooper I left in.
Then you don't have to worry about that as a reporter because you got somebody in your head talking to you all the time.
Yeah.
the
I
the-
do too.
yeah, Jim has 4 other people.
Yeah, people talk to me.
In today's with today's technology, we're all able to generate artificial intelligence cameraman. So that third cameraman was a
What?
artificially intelligent and a generated person of Jim. So there's Jim photographing Jim.
There's a pickpot.
I'm the
Okay,
modern day
that joke
equivalent
just
of Max
bombed.
Headroom.
Yeah, Max Headroom. There you go.
There's a blast from the past.
Well, I'm going to ask the first question to get us started. We filmed this one inside somebody's studio. Would it be possible to film somebody in their, if their environment was someplace like outside, say like a gardener or somebody that works outside? How would you handle that?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
You could do everything that we just did. We had great big gigantic north facing windows there, plenty of daylight in there. Everything we just did in Greg's studio, you could do outdoors. You could work those 3 scenarios again if you wanted. Existing daylight plus fill flash, and you could actually crank your flash up, get it in close if you're using a speed light, and make your key light be your flash and make your daylight be your fill. Absolutely.
I know you did a really great flash thing, Jim, but it went so over my head for parts of it that I looked at it recently and it was like, okay, I need to go back to school.
One thing about that, what you're saying is, one of the reasons why it was shot 3 different ways is because everyone is not proficient at using flash, but the first set of shots were shot using available light. So
Right. But I would like to try to do one of those fill shots out of all those fancy lights.
Now here's one of the things that I'm so glad you mentioned that, Diana, because one of the things that we make as young photographers, we make a mistake on practicing with the equipment on our job.
Yeah, that
as we get there. So we have people that are at our homes, in our environment. We take a flash, we go outside, we practice with them.
Okay.
It's not important that they act right, look right. It's important that we understand the equipment.
Okay.
And then when we go on location, it works just fine. But oftentimes what we do is we get on location and then we're fumbling with a flash, fumbling with the equipment, trying to figure out how it works. And then we're nervous because the person thinks that we think that the person that we're photographing thinks we're an idiot. And then thus the disaster begins.
Okay, so last question for now is when you're hand holding, you're doing most of this hand holding. I know when we did our portraits, or many of us did our portraits using ambient light from the windows and stuff like that, a lot of us used tripods. to compensate for the fact that you're hand holding and some of us are older and don't have the steadiest hand, is there a recommended ISO? Like, do you shoot with the ISO that you use, or not, sorry, not ISO, the speed that you use for birds, or, you know?
Well, I'm going to jump in and answer that one. Is that the person that's photographing is not going to fly away, so we
Okay.
don't have to be prepared with a shutter 1/2000th of a second.
Okay,
So generally, I shoot between. I used to shoot at 1/125 as being my minimum, but I generally shoot at a 1/160 to 1/200.
but you know, the person, well, when he was moving his brush, how would you cover
He
that?
wasn't moving his brush. In fact, I was not trying to photograph him moving his brush. I photographed him when his brush was at rest.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
He did move his brush around, but Robert waited until his brush was in a,
Okay,
in a
got it.
position
Yeah, that's
to,
what,
you
that's
know,
what prompted my question.
to photograph. But
Yeah.
yes, and still, even at the shutter speeds Robert was working with, you know, no problem, you know, for as slow as that brush was moving, even if he caught it in motion at those shutter speeds, it would have been just fine. Yeah, don't be don't be afraid to go up on your ISO, especially with all the you know, as we covered in the
Opaz
last meeting, all the software now that can deal with noise. You know, don't be afraid to push your ISO to get the shutter speed that you need.
Thank you.
And and by the way, you mentioned expensive equipment. That was you know, a speed light and a generic cactus trigger and a small softbox. You could have that you could have that same setup for about $125 easy. Yeah, that was don't be thinking in your mind that was expensive equipment that was being used. You know, a young Noah or a Godox flash,
Yeah.
a little stand and a softbox and a trigger. You could do that for about $125.
Yeah.
You know, in
Not like
equipment,
it
no
used to
problem.
be. Not like
Robert,
it used
I'll
to
be
be.
your
I have a
walkie-talkie.
question.
Yeah.
Environmental photography, does it require what we just saw is in almost a studio situation with the photographer directing the subject and moving him around? Or could the photographer show up at a place and do some environmental photography while he witnesses whatever that person is doing in his environment? Maybe the subject doesn't even know it's happening.
Well, at that point, here's my thought on.
And
At
I
that
concur.
point, it becomes a documentary or an editorial image and not a portrait. A genuine portrait requires some engagement between the photographer and the subject so that you can have that subject engaging with your audience that you are going to show that picture for. That to me is you know, the difference between portrait and a documentary or an editorial image, as you know might be speaking about.
Totally
Yeah, if you're doing a portrait as the photographer, you definitely to, you know, have some direction because you want to control the situation of a portrait. Yeah, it's, you know, otherwise, like I say, you're, you know, in my mind, you're doing documentary editorial work.
The difference is, I'm sorry to cut you off, Richard. The difference is the story being told or you telling the story.
Okay, so I don't know if you remember the basket weaver that I submitted.
Yes.
The
Mhm.
picture of the basket weaver. What would you call that, an environmental portrait or an editorial photo?
That's more of an editorial documentary, actually.
Now, if she had stopped and looked at him, or like engaged with him during the photograph or whatever, would you call that then a portrait?
Yeah, if once you
Environmental
engage
Mm.
and you give a little bit of direction, you know, then you're interacting with your subject.
Yeah.
But I actually
Even if
did
it's,
that, and that was the
yeah.
weaker photograph when she was
Even
looking
if it's
at it.
yeah, I would say even if it's as simple as you just catch their eye, you know, point to your camera and let them know you're taking the picture and get contact, from them with you and whatnot. As simple as that, it can be that simple to turn it into a portrait.
Or a smile.
I want to go to Jim Hagan. Jim Hagan, can you unmute yourself for just a second? I did a lot of directing in that. What would be a problem with you if you approach that same environment and you walked into that studio and you had to photograph that? Describe what you think your shortcomings would be. Now, let me tell you why I'm asking this question. Last week, you said I don't interact with models, and that was my first time. Do you recall that?
Oh, yeah, I do remember that. It just happened to be that was the first time that I had done it. I don't have any problems entering the subject. It just happened to be the first time that I was doing it. In fact, the model that we were using was very cooperative. I guess she is a pro or whatever, but no, I don't have problems with interacting with the subject matter or the person. It just happened to be the first time I had done it.
The other thing about it, you said it was a pro. Most of the time when you're dealing with environmental portraits, the people are not pros and they are looking to you for some sort of direction. They want to look good in their environment. They want to help you tell the story, whatever story you're telling. They can't see what you're doing, but they do want to make sure that they get a really good picture out of it. So that's why I was asking.
No, I give it a shot, that's for sure.
No pun intended.
I'm not quite match up to your speed, obviously, but I would try to, the best portrait that I could.
And
Alan, you're generally quiet person. How would you approach this?
Well, first of all, it's a little overwhelming to me, but I think that I struggle with flash. And about a month or so ago, during one of the exhibitions, you had suggested that the photographer not use her flash and to boost her ISO. So I guess my approach would be, well, do I use a flash that I'm not too good at, or do I just boost my ISO and focus on using the available light in the room? That's probably because of my skill level more than anything else.
So here's the thing that I say, and Alan, you said it exactly the way I was hoping you would, which is you do best what you know. You practice what you don't know. But what you do best what you do know. And that would be the approach I would take. Available light, whatever it is that you know that you can, your equipment becomes second or third, and your skill set of directing your subject or getting whatever it is out of your subject, that becomes primary.
And that's the hardest thing. That's way harder than figuring out flash.
And I'll tell you guys, to be able to talk, shoot, and think, and then try not to have Jim step all over me because I was kept getting in his way. That
not step on the paintings.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you, I have what is about 3 or 4 feet in front of me with a 24 to 105 lens. Now, what I wouldn't have gone any wider because the image would have looked more wide. It would look more like a fisheye lens. That was one of the purposes of shooting the pano whenever I'm in a short space. Chris, your thoughts?
Wake up, Chris.
Chris?
Which one?
I'm talking about you, Chris. Yeah.
You got 2 Chris's.
Okay, I wanted to sing you, Chris.
The old guy?
The old guy.
The old guy.
Well, I learned flash really early on, and I was working in a studio back in the late 60s. So flash to me is just second nature. And if there's, to me, it's a great advantage to be able to create the light that you want. Not that I'm going to do it every time, but if it's available and I need it, I would use the flash.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, I got sidetracked for a minute there dealing with something, but I want to jump in. She's talking about being able to use flash like we did in the studio there as an auxiliary or a primary light source. And I'll point out, in case it wasn't discussed a minute ago, the second setup that was done where Greg had his back to the windows and his face was in shadow facing the painting. That could have you could have easily replaced the flash in that with a reflector.
Oh yeah.
A reflector absolutely worked just fine in that. Or, and this could have been done in the second case, the windows were blocked out and it was actually darker in there, IXPDO, so you could see what was going on, but the room was dark looked in once we put those big panels in and blocked the window. You don't have to use flash as that light source. The continuous light, works in the second and third setups where the flash is being used. That could have easily been, an LED light or even a lamp, with a bright light bulb in it with a lampshade off, or even with a lampshade on for, soft light, a table lamp or a floor lamp could have been a stand-in for the flash. And the benefit of that is you see the lighting pattern on your subject's face in real time instead of having to chimp after you take a picture with the flash.
Right.
I don't know about anybody else, but one of the things I have is trying to pose people. Like I watched Robert when he filmed my son's engagement party, and some of the and then I watched the professional photographer that did my son's pictures, and he sucked. And it was frustrating because it was made such a, it pointed, I mean, I already knew Robert had done a good job, but posing a couple and making it look natural is not an easy thing to do. So,
That's
I mean,
true.
are there some hints that you can do? I mean, I picked up a few when you were positioning his brush and all that other stuff, but sometimes they look really staged and you want to avoid that.
If I can say something about it, oftentimes one of the first things that you can say to your subject while you're photographing them in order to make things look staged is you say, no, I don't want that. The moment you say no in a shoot, you take away the ability to be natural. And what it is that you put somebody in a position and you just start shooting. The moment you start shooting there, they will get into a groove where they become very natural if you shoot more than one frame. And what I'm getting at is that I told Greg, okay, put the brush in your hand. And the first thing that happened, he held the brush up, yes. And I'm saying, okay, a little bit to the side. I fired off about 8 or 10 frames where he then moved the brush downward in a natural position without me even having to say anything. I'll say, cross your legs. Okay, cross your legs. And then the moment it gets to the point where it got really close to it, you heard my excitement in it. Yes, 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 that's it. And when you give the affirmation, then people tend to do more of it. But the very moment you say no, they stop and take directions. Here's how I know this. Guys, you're in the car and you're driving, you've driven 100 million times. You got your partner there on the other side, and you've gone to this spot that you're traveling to on the road, and you've gone there 100 times. And all of a sudden, your partner says to you, there's a backup. And the partner says to you, hey, no, turn to the right here. And you go turn to the right. The moment they say no and turn to the right, you go, I'll take directions from you now. And you'll turn to the right and you'll go wherever they tell you, even though you know how to get to where you're going. you will then be under the direction of the person that's guiding you. And when you hear no. So,
Never say no.
you know, you generally don't say no. You say, you put them in a position, you photo it, even if it's not right, and then you start to adjust that position. And so when I'm looking through the viewfinder, what I'm doing is I'm photographing the scene, yes. But if I tell you to like put your hand up near your face, what I'm doing is I'm no longer looking at the scene. I'm actually concentrating on what you're doing as far as your hand at that point. And I fire off a few frames just to make sure that I have your hands in that position that I'm looking to see.
And
So, and then once that happens, then I go back to looking at the full scene.
the other thing you did was you shot Pano hand holding.
Yes.
It's hard to do.
No, it's not. What did I? When you saw me do it. All I did was point the camera up, left, right, side, up, and
I saw
then
Pano this way.
No, he's doing, I wanted you to explain exactly what you did because it wasn't easy to see it. So explain to him exactly what you were doing with that piano.
Around a square.
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
So what I did was I shot 3, 4, 5 frames of the main shot, him. That, and I looked and I said, okay, I got that. I'm saying it in my head. I got the shot that I want as far as his look. And then I pan to the left, pan to the right, pan up, middle, side, in order to make a grid. Now, when it came to the final panel, when it put it together, if I didn't like the facial that the panel put together, I would insert or composite the right facial or the right move because I already had it in the first frame.
I'll give you a point of reference. If anyone's old enough to remember the TV show Hollywood Squares,
Yeah.
think of your subject as the center square and then shoot around that. Just make sure the other squares overlap at least 30% when you do the perimeter squares.
So basically you were doing nine squares, 9 shots.
Tic-tac-toe.
Yeah, 9 shots.
Jim, we're old enough to remember that show. And this,
Something else in terms of the positioning of the model, he was also taking into consideration the light. So when he was shooting with the ambient light, especially to start off with, you saw him when Greg was sitting over to the side with the stuff behind him, Robert was having him turn his face. And if you go in and watch the video again, slow it down and stop it. When he turns his face, the light was changing on his face. So that's the beauty of ambient light and set light, like using an LED light or something, because then you can see what the light's going to be. With a flash, it's harder because it's just a flash. So if you've got a light that's on all the time, or using the ambient light, you could see what the light is doing on that person's face. And one time, I don't know if it was on the tape, but he did say it while we were taping. He said, "Yeah, I like the way the light is going along, the edges of your legs, the way you're, on the edges of everything." So it was basically backlighting him. And so that's the stuff you need. That is part of what the positioning is about, is the lighting as well. So keep that in mind.
Andrea, I know you're new and visiting and all of those things. You hadn't been here before, have you?
Nope.
Welcome to the spotlight being on you. Do you do any type of things like this? And if you do, share that. If you do not, then tell me what you got out of the video.
I've done a few. I kind of similar to that. I really do like to do more, like, I guess, location stuff outdoors. And then usually kind of using a pop of like on camera flash, or maybe to the side, just because I'm still not super comfortable with flash photography either. But I really did like the last few that you did. You had commented kind of like creating like that Rembrandt lighting. And that's when you guys had actually blocked all the natural light anyway, and you were using mainly the flashlight source. I really like those. I thought those turned out really nice. It was just kind of a different mood. So yeah, I mean, my main interest with kind of, I guess, attending this was just to kind of get a better idea of mixing the light like with natural light and kind of filling in flash and using flash with it as well. I do have some headshots that I'm doing coming up the end of next week. So I need to practice more and I know headshots and environmental portraits are not exactly the same, but they're not entirely different either because it's for a lawyer and it'll be in his office. So it'll be in his environment, but it'll still be headshots. But yeah, so.
I want you to
Environmental
consider-
headshot.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have all
I
those
want-
books behind him.
Well,
Yeah,
actually,
exactly. I'd like to, maybe if I could do a couple different locations, like you said, like, with his books behind him, and then maybe just some stuff like in the window, and then maybe at his desk,
now I'd like for you to consider putting a whole bunch of his paperwork, briefs, all over the place and make it messy. And that would really show more of a personality of a lawyer
Yeah.
rather than this button up thing that we normally see with a lawyer.
yeah. I don't know. We'll see how creative he wants to get.
You can give that one.
Whoa,
to Dwight.
whoa, 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 whoa,
Whoa.
whoa, whoa. You have said the kiss of death to me. The idea is not to see how creative they want to be. It's how creative you bring what you bring to the table.
Right. But at the same time, how I guess kind of naturally that can happen.
It happens with planning.
and the subject.
Yeah, it happens with planning. You generally, I had to photograph something, and I know we're going slightly off subject here. I had to photograph a family that was building a home. And they were building it, and I was photographing the home from the ground up all the way to completion. It took about 2 years. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to get the family standing next to a mailbox, a temporary mailbox that was put in place by the builders before they even actually did anything. So they were standing next to the mailbox with dirt behind them. And then I told them after that shot, I want to photograph each of you in what would be your room in the house on the dirt hill. And then at the end, I wanted to photograph you actually in the built house in the rooms.
That's a really cool kind of like story. Or
Look, Andrea, there's something you don't know about me. I'm so perfect and arrogant and think so much of myself that of course it's perfect. You know why it's perfect? It's because at first I was afraid. I come up with the idea and I was afraid to execute it, wondering what they might think. And the moment I actually planned it ahead of time and told people what it is that I like to do, then they got on board.
I loved it. I'm sure they were very excited about it.
Yeah.
So that's
it's unique.
so as a photographer, and the reason going back to what Richard said is that you want to engage, because when people see something that's out of the see your thoughts that are out of the norm, then sure, people will generally want to go with it.
Yeah.
That's what you're bringing to the table.
Yeah, we are kind of going down a rabbit hole here, but you kind of fed into something that's kind of my thing. I do a lot of portraits in environments, but I actually don't do much environmental portraiture because I do a lot of work with performers and some artists, and a lot of what I do with them is take them out of their environment and put them somewhere completely different from their environment, almost like anti-environmental photography, and put them in a different location than where they would normally do their thing and shoot them as a creative process.
Jim and Robert, in the past with Flash, there was always an attempt to make it look almost like natural light. It was considered to be very amateurish if your flash made things brighter than the surroundings. I mean, now a portrait's different because you're shaping a face and so forth, but things have seemed to change over the years. And now I see a lot of stuff I see where the individual person is lit up very, very highly and much more than the background and so forth. But I guess it's a style. It's just different.
Have you seen the that Ford Model T? And then Jim McWilliams' new car, that new up top of the line Lexus type deal. Things do change.
Styles change, tastes change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I'll bring this up as a little bit of a cautionary thing. If you're doing formal portraiture, family portraiture or whatever, yes, there is, what's currently in vogue, and it's okay to shoot some of that, but please be conscious when you're doing that of also making sure you get some more what you would call traditional type photos, especially for families, portraits, things like that, because regardless of what the style of the moment is that looks good on Instagram or Facebook this week, when it comes to their family album that's going to be passed on generation after generation, this gimmick filter of the week is not going to be what they're going to be passing on in their family album through the generations.
You'll be made fun of.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's very popular. Those presets and all those different that all kind of look the same, but yeah. I get frustrated.
Yes.
So
People will love that, for, like I say, for the moment, for their Facebook page, for their post or whatever. But, also think about, that it is the gimmick of the week, gimmick of the month, whatever. It's, give them some stuff that they can pass along, in their real family memories as well.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Kathy.
Everybody's been trained to smile when you see a camera, it seems. And if Robert said, no, you don't tell them no, but how do you, gently say, well, you don't really need to smile, just find an expression that, is representative of the moment as opposed to sitting there being.
Let me go first on that one, Jim. I know you have some thoughts. Let me go first on that one. I make it a game. I go, smile, smile, smile. Give me that fake smile that you normally give me. Give it to me. Yes, yes. Now don't give it to me the next three shots. Now, and what I'm doing is I'm searching for something in between.
Okay.
So the game is, all right, I want you to smile. I know you hate smiling, but I want you to smile just a little bit. Now, if they're hesitant about smiling, then you can go in the other direction. But if they smile all the time, like really, really smile, then I tell them, okay, I have the smiles. I love it. Let me have something that tells me that you do not like what I'm doing when I come over your house at 3 a.m. asking you to pose for me. And you'll get that curiosity look. And then I'll say, okay, let's play that up a little bit more.
Well, what if you don't have time to do that? It's not, you're trying to take an environmental portrait, but it's a quickly passing moment. And they come up to you and they're smiling and you want to get a quick photograph of them, but they've got another job to do. In other words, they don't really have time to stand there and
if you can press that button and keep pressing that button and say to me, you say to them, I need 5 more minutes. When it's time to go, they will give you a different expression. I guarantee you. Guarantee you. The idea is to keep shooting. The problem we have is that when we're photographing people, our lack of confidence comes through. And here's an example of how it works. we are not sure what we're doing, so we talk more, shoot less.
Okay.
The idea
More
is
talk
to
less,
continue,
yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's kind of an unusual situation that you bring up where it's an environmental portrait, but there's not time to do it, because normally that's something that is set up and prepared for. It sounds more like you're talking about you just encounter a situation and ask somebody to look at your camera.
Well, no, it's we're out at a ranch and they've got these wranglers and they have a job to do and they come by and I'm sitting there with a camera trying to photograph the horses or whatever comes along. And then they see me and they go, "Oh, take my picture." You know, and they're really happy to get these pictures, but I don't have time to set it up or to do anything special with it.
Yes, you
You've got
do.
the
By
perfect, you've
that
got the
you do.
perfect atmosphere.
And
Oh,
you
it's a great atmosphere. Yeah, it's perfect. But
there is nothing wrong with stopping someone and saying, "Hey, after you finish with your job here, let me get something over here. Just 10 minutes of your time."
yeah, well, they just don't have that time. That's the deal. They, they're working.
And
and
there
they're-
is another technique. You find the position, you find the shot, you find the environment, and then let them come in and get the shot, and you be ready for it.
Yeah.
Well, that's basically I'm set up
Yeah.
and they're coming along. They're riding.
Oh, then there you go. Okay, then
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but they
Then
all
you-
smile. They don't look natural.
Right, then this is what you do. This is what you do. You ask them a question. You ask them to tell you something. You break the fact that they're actually posing for you. Just engage them in 10 seconds of conversation and shoot while
yeah.
try and catch them in between words. Ask them something that makes them stop and think for a minute. Anything to break it out of the point that they think they're smiling for a portrait. Ask them a question and engage them in conversation for a minute and just catch them in between sentences while they're thinking about an answer. Do that.
Yeah, you have to learn to shoot and talk at the same time. That's the hard part.
Yeah.
And that's the way to do it, is to distract them from what you're doing so that you can keep doing what you're doing without them, reacting to you in a way that you don't want them to.
Ask them, what's your horse's name? Tell me about your saddle. Anything like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, my favorite, like with kids, I ask them, like a little girl, "Who's your boyfriend?" And they all go, I mean, I lose the fake smile and I've got a perfectly natural smile, you know? Yeah.
So do the eyes have to be showing in these environmental portraits? I mean, is that a necessity? An
Yes, they're
essential?
blind.
At least get that in one shot if you have the chance to do multiple. If you want to try and do, something kind of creative and out of the box, go ahead, but get that too.
Okay, so a back wouldn't be a good thing.
That
portrait is a
becomes more of a
face.
documentary or an
Okay.
editorial shot than a portrait. Yeah, that wouldn't,
Okay.
I would not consider that a portrait.
Okay.
I'm gonna go to Jan. I know she's not on camera right now. Jan, tell me your thoughts.
She's still there.
She left to go to I think she went to cook something. So let's see.
Oh, there
I'm
she's
here.
there. She's
I'm
back.
here. I think probably the thing, let me see if I can get I don't know if I can get my video on or not. I think the thing that kind of struck me was what Diana said earlier. I probably would feel lost as far as how to pose. So I think that was more my thing, is that, in the moment, like you're taking photos and you're posing them as you're taking photos, just like we were talking about. And I would just be lost with that. I would have no idea what to do with that. So,
Jan, I don't pose people to pose them. I look at what they do in their natural environment, and then I just push them back to what they were doing already. When I walked in the studio, the times he had his legs crossed and he was leaning back, that's what I saw.
okay.
So
Yeah.
I don't try to put people in a particular pose, in a sense, unless they are in the studio getting a portrait made. And so
Mhm.
at that point, I'm shooting 100, 200 images of them, and having them turn left, right, or up and down, and they only get to see, 5 or 10 images
Mhm.
out
Yeah.
of the 100 or so. But when it comes to posing, it's not something that I just pull out of my hat, my experience and say, okay, I want you to pose this way or that way. That's when you get the unnatural looks, because I don't tell somebody to do something that they're not already doing. It's like training a dog. You don't train a dog to do to give his or her best performance based on what it is you want them to do. You give it based on what they already do, and you just enhance it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll elaborate, on that. In a situation like that, don't even necessarily think of it as posing. Like Robert said, he noticed Greg sat in certain positions. He would lean back in his chair, he'd cross his legs and stuff like that. And then once Robert set up where he wanted to be and where the light was, he was pretty much working with that. And it's not so much a matter of posing, but looking within your camera at your composition through the viewfinder, how they're placed with the background, how the light is falling on them, and making adjustments. That's mostly what Robert was doing, was not, you wouldn't call it posing, but adjusting what they do naturally so that it's not looking unusual through your camera, so that you're not cutting them off or having his knee blocking his face if he puts his leg up too high or leans back too high in a chair, something like that. Think of it more like adjusting what they're doing as opposed to posing.
Okay.
Because a pose is something where you're going to direct them completely what to do. That's more adjusting what they do naturally. And you even saw in the video at one point, Robert asked Greg to turn his head one way and said, "Oh no, I can see you're totally uncomfortable with that. Go back to what you were doing."
Right. Yeah, you said something, Jim, that just kind of clicked when you were saying what you're looking through the viewfinder and then, looking at your composition. And that kind of reframes it for me, because before I was specifically thinking about, I don't know anything about posing people, and so I was kind of, fixated on the idea of posing them. But when you were saying that as far as looking through the viewfinder and, adjusting your composition, that kind of made more sense to me.
Good.
So, yeah.
There's
I have
something
a
that
question, Robert.
Kathy Thompson is doing right now. Kathy, turn back to your right and look at your monitor.
Okay.
Turn back to your right and look at your monitor.
Oh, okay.
Now lean forward towards your monitor, just like you were doing. There you go. There's my profile photograph. Just that simple. It's something that she was doing already. If
So
you look at
okay.
if you look at Susan,
Yes.
Susan Huckabee,
Okay.
Susan, I know you're sitting back there, but you were leaning forward. Put your hand over your mouth as though you were concentrating. Lean forward and do that. That's what you were doing. That's a portrait to me. So she was doing something already.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I look at it and and all I'll say is that same thing that she's doing, turn more toward the light. That's all I'm doing.
Okay.
Question, Robert, question.
I'm listening.
All right, since we're doing environmental portraits, how much of the background is part of the equation? I mean, if you're outdoors and you're taking a photograph of firemen, it's like, how much of the environment should be in the background?
Good question, and I know
Jim,
Robert's going to answer it for you.
Jim, no, I'd like for you to tackle that because I know that I have an answer for it.
Well, Robert addressed that in the video. There is a point where you have to look at what's going on in the viewfinder and remember that your subject is primary and the background, the environment, is supporting your subject and not the other way around. Take a look at the story you're telling through your viewfinder and make sure that your subject is not just an element within that environment, but make your subject prominent and have the environment support that. There's no rule that you can say this is how much environment needs to be here for any particular subject and what's going on. Look at the story you're telling within that photograph and just make sure your subject is primary and that your environment is supporting the subject of the portrait and not the other way around.
In other words, not the whole fire truck, and the firefighter. You want the firefighter with enough of the fire truck to show that it's a fire truck. In
Yeah,
other
we did that, didn't we, Lynn?
Yeah, yeah.
That's a good example.
Been there, done that.
I'm having, because to be honest with you, I really don't think I understood what an environmental portrait is. And now that you've talked about editorial photographs or documentary photographs, so the difference to me, if I take a photo of a fireman fighting a fire, that's a documentary photograph.
Correct.
Is that right?
Absolutely.
That's not a portrait. So
Correct.
to me, then eye contact is
The key.
pretty important.
Yeah.
Eye contact
Mhm.
to the camera. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Imagine that firefighter has come down and he saved the little girl, has it in his arms, and you have the fire flames in the background, and you say, Joe, take a look here to me. You have now done an environmental portrait.
Right, right. But it's sort of a fine line, because you did one photograph of the artist actually painting and looking toward the canvas. So to me, that's more documentary.
That's supporting. That's supporting.
And if you
images.
noticed, Robert did discuss that in the video, and he said that, this is something I'm doing just supportive of the story.
Okay, so that would
that's something, like when we did this shoot live, Greg is getting all these photos from us. So in addition to the fact that we want to create an environmental portrait and he's going to get an environmental portrait, while you're there doing the session, that's a good example of, there's nothing wrong with mixing in some documentary and editorial, photographs that you can include in the package for your subject. But for instance, in terms of an assignment, like where we have an assignment and says it's an environmental portrait, sure, go ahead and do that during your shoot for whoever you're shooting for and give them those shots as well. But what you turn in for your assignment is what you're assigned to do, which is the environmental portrait part. Don't give us a documentary or an editorial shot to judge. And if you're actually being hired, by anybody, make sure you give them the environmental portrait, which is the assignment. But there's nothing wrong with padding it with some editorial and documentary shots, of what they do as well.
So if I go into a barber shop and I decide that I would like to do the barber, he's going to be my subject, and I say, I'm just going to come in here, don't pay any attention to me, and I'm going to photograph you. Or I go in and I say, okay, I want you to pose over by your table with a pair of scissors in your hand, look over at me now. But that's the difference between an environmental portrait. What if I get a better shot of him actually cutting somebody's hair?
Give it to him, but don't turn it into us for your assignment for environmental portrait.
Okay.
So let's say he's cutting the hair. He's cutting the hair like so, and he's doing his thing in there, and he's looking down at the thing, and you turn around and you say something to him. You say, "Hey, Jim, I really love the way that you interact with your clients." And he says, "I never do this kind of stuff." And he raises his hand like so, and you capture that shot. What caused that interaction? You did.
Okay.
At that point, the interaction between you and that subject, even though he's overly exaggerated about his laughter, becomes the environmental portrait.
Yeah. And this may sound harsh, but in the world of professional photography, when you're hired to do stuff and whatever, the fact is that if you're assigned to make an environmental portrait and the best thing you come away with is a documentary shot that's better than your environmental portrait, you failed at your assignment.
Yeah.
And
I had one more question about the grid shooting to make the pano. When you're shooting, I understand that concept, but when you shoot for the background, do you include part of the subject in that, or do you get your subject shot and then? I was a little unclear how you would do that.
Well, as mentioned, I shoot the subject first.
Right.
I shoot 4 or 5 shots of the subject. All right. And then I begin my pano by shooting the floor, the sides, and the grid. The grid
And
begins at
those
that
would
point.
not include any of the subject, is that correct?
So it would say that again, the first?
Those would not include any of the subject, it would strictly
Oh,
be,
you gotta have an overlap. You gotta
So
have an
you-
overlap.
oh, so you do have part of the, and then.
Yeah.
And then you put that
Yes.
together in Photoshop, just like a regular pano that you would do.
I actually put it together in Lightroom.
Yeah, Lightroom will do it too. Yeah.
Just do
Now
it as-
I'm going to, yeah, and I'll add into that when you do that, you've got your subject, in the center, and then you work those squares around. You have to overlap. You want to overlap 30%. If
Okay.
there's some slight motion of your subject in between this and that, and the original stitching doesn't go together, then at that point, you can go ahead and, put your original subject shot, back over top, do some masking, do some layering and masking, and you will have to do that. It's not always going to be perfect, but you do have the ability to stack layers and mask and make it be what you need to have there. I've done some interesting things with masking, in environmental portraits. Actually, another painter that used to be up there one time, he was kind of a crazy guy, and I did an environmental portrait of him in his studio, and he was also a surfer and a stoner and everything, and we did this whole thing where it was a pano like Robert shot, but it also required masking stuff because we put him on a surfboard and made it look like he was surfing in midair, halfway up off the ground through his studio. And it involved masking because we actually put his surfboard on a pedestal and then set him up on a pedestal on his surfboard cross-legged, and we had to mask it out. But it actually was it fit his personality well. He was this, stoner surfer dude painter in his studio, levitating on his surfboard through the middle of his studio with his paintings behind him. But it was a pano like Robert shot, and then masking as well.
Hey, can I ask a question? I'm thinking back to when the small group of us toured the cigar factory in Ybor City.
Mhm.
And now most of those shots would have been documentary type shots. However, if we engaged one of the workers and what they were doing, a couple of questions, my thinking is that could have been turned into an environmental portrait.
Absolutely.
Okay. It's, and just taking the static shot, no, it's just again, use the phrase documentary type photo. But if you engage the person, ask them what they're doing, get a pleasant expression from them.
Yeah. And
you're in the bar.
And what it comes down to is, it could happen that you could simply be shooting, documentary, editorial type stuff, and they look at you and the moment is right, and and you could pass it off. Nobody's going to know when you just present an image, whether you were really engaged with that subject or not. If you have a shot that looks like that subject is engaged with the audience that's viewing the photo, it can happen by accident, not gonna lie to you, but if you want to guarantee results, you're gonna have to interact. But nobody's saying that when you're just taking those shots, that it's also not, you're not gonna accidentally come up with something that you can pass off as an environmental
Not
portrait.
accidentally, but you get into a situation like vendors at the state fair or something like that, and you initiate the conversation with them, so that what would have been a documentary type shot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If they know you're taking the picture,
right?
And they're engaged in the process of you taking the picture, absolutely.
Am I sharing my screen right now?
Yeah.
Yes,
Robert,
you
we
are,
can see
Robert.
you. Yeah.
Okay. To answer that question prior, you can see now what I'm doing here with these images. And then you see how I go up and then down.
Okay. That helps some. Yeah, that makes it a little
It
clearer.
kind of goes around.
Robert, could you include that or that is going to be in the video that you guys are
Video's in here now.
recording?
It's in there now.
And
Shot's in the video.
And this is also on, if you go to my TBCC page, you'll see this image.
Okay. My
And-
question, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I had a question, like if you're trying to do a tennis player tossing a ball in the air or teaching a student or something like that, you're going to wind up with more profile pictures in essence because
Mhm.
that's capturing
And
the
that-
motion.
And
But
what you
I'm
just
a little
described is an editorial photo essay,
crap.
not an environmental portrait.
Mhm.
Okay. So I have to have the tennis player hitting the ball at me.
That would be a
My
pretty
husband would
cool.
love
That would actually be a pretty cool environmental portrait.
Environmental portrait.
Yeah, if he was looking at the camera and smacking a ball right at the camera, I could actually see that as a pretty creative environmental portrait.
All right, don't anybody
Absolutely.
use that. My
Now,
husband,
if he's hitting it the other way or hitting it across the court to somebody else, no, that's a documentary
all
shot.
right, good.
He's looking at you and hitting the ball right at you. Absolutely, environmental
Happily,
portrait.
he's hitting it and very hard.
You can follow it up with at the urgent care clinic.
Then it becomes a documentary.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Jack.
My question for the night, and that is, this is just an aside, but is there ever a time when a environmental portrait has more than one person in it?
Yeah, sure.
If
Why wouldn't it?
yeah, if it's part of that person's environment to have other people in their environment, it would absolutely be appropriate. If something that person does, as their job or their hobby or whatever it is you're trying to represent about your subject involves other people or their environment as a matter of course has other people in it, then absolutely that's appropriate.
Yeah,
Okay.
like the surgeon and all his team, Jack.
Yeah.
You guys still see the photograph here on the screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna kind of go through it. When he was sitting there like so, I said, okay, I see that he has a stare. He doesn't move around very much. So the process begins. And I secure this image. And then you notice now I'm gonna go down and then around, up, and then that's where we come to.
Robert, go ahead and put those 9 images through Lightroom and just show them what it can do.
It's gonna take a moment, but
It's okay.
let's see. Let me find. Okay, let's see about this one. I think that one. All right, so that's the one that it comes up with. Now I want to do the one where he's up and it's shot from up above.
Okay.
So let me do that one because that is the one that shows. Let's see in the beginning.
See, guys, the pros even take a gazillion shots.
Oh yeah, because I'm constantly shooting while I'm talking.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is Greg wasn't even aware of the fact that Robert was shooting as much as he was. I'm sure he wasn't aware.
Mhm.
So he was getting, even he was engaged with Robert, but at the same time, he wasn't. He had a pretty, I don't know, I wouldn't call him a sour face, but he was sort of kind of stoic looking all the time. So
all the time.
And which is and that's Greg.
Yeah, that's him.
I've known Greg for 18 years, and that's Greg. So he was captured being Greg. It's an appropriate portrait.
Yeah.
All right,
Hey,
so
Jim,
But
is
yeah,
he
but
the guy that
as we
gave us-
mentioned up front, you saw a 2-hour photo shoot condensed into 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So
Is he the guy that gave us the coffee cup? Jim?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I thought
I had
thought
almost
that was
forgotten
him.
about that. Yes, you're
Yeah.
you're right, Leslie.
I thought that was him.
Yep.
Is this panel going to give us a better picture than a wide angle lens with it? Does it eliminate the wide angle distortion?
generally a super wide angle lens will give you something like this. It might give you more like this, but I think you have less distortion if you were to take a panel with less of a wide angle lens. So you get less distortion that way. Am I right about that, Jim?
Yes, because I do that sometimes in architectural and real estate work. You may not have been there at the one meeting, the one image I showed the one time that was that was the huge wide angle shot that was a cover of a magazine. But in order to do it and not have distortion, it was actually a 4 across and 4 down pano shot with a 50mm lens to give the equivalent of what a fisheye would give you without the fisheye distortion.
Wow. Cool.
This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. So I'm going to stop it about right here.
Yeah, he's gonna go ahead and run this through Lightroom, guys, so you can see
Yeah.
how it works.
So I'm going to do a command or control number, the letter M. Oh, wait a minute. That's wrong. It's control and not command. Okay. So it's going to be control M.
Or you
And
can just
then-
go to photo and drop it down and say merge.
You can right
to
click and use the use the flyout context
drop down.
menu.
It just says
Yeah.
photo merge to panorama.
Photo mode. Yep, exactly.
So you have 3 projections here. And I think that was spherical that I used. It's going to take a minute because these files are 64 megs a piece.
Yeah, when you're shooting, especially uptight on a subject like that in a closed-in environment where you're close like that, it pays, like Robert is saying, to actually view the preview in each of those 3 options there. Ignore the names that they say and just look at the results, because you would think, oh, why would I want to use spherical? And sometimes spherical is actually the one that's going to give you the best looking image. You'd think, a perspective works a lot of the time, but you'd be surprised that sometimes cylindrical and spherical give you a better looking image than the perspective model.
So once it builds, that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to do it, because it does take a while to build. These are huge images.
Keep talking.
If you just now, I'll give you a tip related to what Robert's doing, especially if you're shooting with a high resolution camera with a large sensor. If you want to get those previews and not necessarily do all that time, if you are at the time when you're shooting, if you're shooting RAW plus JPEG, generate your initial previews of perspective, cylindrical, and spherical using JPEGs, not your original RAW files, or just do some quick JPEG conversions to small JPEGs from your RAW files, and then you can, in a matter of seconds, look at each of those 3 projections just by doing it on a set of 9 low-res JPEGs, as opposed to trying to do that 3 times on really big RAW files.
Now, I'll tell you exactly what Jim said. I mean, exactly to a T. Whenever I'm doing this as a job, I pull the JPEGs first and figure out if it's going to work. So I did
try the other ones, Robert. See what it does.
Anytime I know I'm shooting panos, I'm shooting RAW plus JPEG, and I'm doing all my tests.
Well, that's
with,
great.
With the JPEGs.
That looks like you're shooting it from a ladder.
Yeah. So in this, if I did an auto crop on that, that's what it would look like.
Yeah.
So I think I ended up with the spherical, and then that you notice that it cut off the leg here in that one. So I took the auto crop off and then cropped it myself.
Have you tried do the boundary warp just to see what it does?
Yeah.
Because I use that a lot. It works great, especially in landscapes. See, that straightens things out very nicely.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then you crop it yourself.
Yeah, then you can crop it. So there are several different ways of getting to arriving at the same entity, but I think what I wanted in a shot was I wanted a top down, and so I'm going to cancel that, and that's what we ended up with.
The light must have been very low because it was, you were 3200 ISO and your shutter speed was like 1/100th or something.
1/160.
1/160th, yeah.
Mhm.
No prayer, and yeah.
But I'm shooting at, f7.1. I'm at ISO 4000.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. To get you, the light must have been really low in order to get to have to go up
Well,
that high.
It's north facing windows. It's not direct light. It's north facing windows, which is beautiful soft light, but it's not overly bright light. So, like I say, that's what we're talking about. Don't be afraid when you need to. Modern cameras, those ISO levels are fine, especially with the AI software that's available right now to clean that up. Look at this. Look at that shot. Go to 1-to-1 magnification on that, Robert, and let them see. I don't think you're going to see any noise in that.
Yeah, you're going to see a little bit, but I cleaned that up in the final. But let me show you one thing right here that I'm going to do here in order to
there's
make
nothing
something
objectionable in that image at all.
No.
As far as noise goes.
And I'm just going to take a brush and put it right about here, like so, and then I'm gonna run it over to about here, and then I'm going to just bring that exposure up just like so, and then do the same thing right over here, and then run it down to about here. And now I'm bringing in some of that extra thing that you guys were expecting. I'm making that really big. And then I'll just take the value up a little bit more.
So you're creating a spotlight.
Yeah, just some extra lighting in there. And whenever I create light like so, I don't generally make it white. I make it warm. So it'll be a little bit of warm light in there. There you go. And there you go. So that's I know we didn't expect to go down this rabbit hole, but this is let's see, you turn it off. There you go.
Yep. The Earth just tilted on its axis, and the sun is in the north now.
So, but I just want you to know that there are all kinds of things you can do in post-processing that, to accentuate your shot. But this has some beautiful light. And even though it may have been the desired shutter speed and aperture, those are the two things that were important to me. The ISO was not. That doesn't mean that I had to shoot at ISO 100. If I run this through my DxO or Topaz or On1, either of those things, this thing would clean up so nicely. I mean, really nicely. So.
Any questions, anybody? We're at 9 o'clock.
Oh, okay. Wow, we stretched it out to 9 o'clock?
Yep.
Wow.
One more question. Just a clarification. You said that we can do people or animals. Was that part
I
of
think they did, didn't they?
I don't think it was on this one.
I don't remember that.
I think the window portrait one. I mean, we did one with the window portrait. They said it was an animal.
Window light.
But yeah, but
Yes.
this one, this one, I think we need to have a person.
Yep.
Because it's a dog. A dog really doesn't work in their environment.
And they don't smile very well either.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It seems
I
to be a
just thought
person.
I thought I'd read where it was.
Yeah, it seems to be a person.
I remember seeing one about a pet.
It did say pet.
Yeah.
It
On
says,
the
That up there. We'd rather have it not. I don't know why.
yeah, it says pet. It says portrait of a person or pet. I just pulled it up.
Okay.
Oh,
Thanks for the clarification
what's-
on that.
What's the verdict?
Yeah. What's that?
Oh, yeah. People
Remove
may
it
have already
from
been
the
working on
website?
it. That's what got put out there. So we're going to stand by. As far as I'm concerned, I'll stand by what's out there.
You've come to Saks Fifth Avenue. If the price tag says it, we'll honor it.
Okay.
Thanks,
Any other
everyone.
questions, guys?
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Very much.
Thank you very much.
The board needs to stick around.
Good night,
Yes.
John Roy.
Good night.
Night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you. That was very well